It finally happened. They played an actual football game for the Kansas City Chiefs down in New Orleans. They got a lot done. Some standouts, some question marks, a lot coming and going. We are here live post-game. This is Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. Congratulations. It's football season officially again. It's about time, isn't it, Dan?
Oh, it's been a long off season, guys. It feels like this one was here before we knew it, but then it drugged to get to the preseason, and then here we are. It started, and I could tell Chiefs fans were in mid-season form. The first drive, mid-season form, all over Twitter. You guys, I love y'all, and I appreciate all the continued support for every time Cornell Powell makes a play. You guys always hit me up, and I love it. It's fantastic, so thank you guys for that.
I mean, I think we're going to have to do probably a whole segment on the wide receivers. So, folks, we will get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to a couple of your questions as well. We won't. This isn't the full Q&A. That's tomorrow night at 7 Central. So make sure you're with us then. We'll get through, and you guys will run the show. We'll just answer all your questions all night long. That's what we generally do. I have some takeaways that I'd like to start with because I want to see if you can confirm what I saw or if you see something different. Obviously, we didn't get a ton of reps out of the starters, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. A couple of drives for the defense, just one for Patrick, fine. But what I did like is I saw that they were blitzing Leo initially out of the base defense right away, and I felt that that was helpful. They followed up with Nick on a blitz as well. Nick looked a little bit like he wasn't 100% in his fits against the run game. There were some holes out there today, and I think that's just normal, like first preseason game of the year kind of thing. But overall, playing in the base defense, I felt like they did a pretty good job. Knowing that they don't play that a whole lot, how did you come away with it?
Yeah, I think that was their idea of being able to get away with playing without Chris Jones. Like they're like, we're going to play a little bit more aggressively, even in base. We'll add some more, bodies to it with bigger bodies like Leo Chanel. And again, timing is always trying to figure everything out because you don't get to really hit and you can't time up hits in training camp. So you're learning how to get downhill again and reacclimate your body to it. So the first drive, first couple of preseason games are going to be about handling that timing and getting everything back to where it goes. Till it's a well-oiled machine. Not everything always does that. So it wasn't a bad effort in terms of just getting the kinks out, getting guys hit every now and then, just getting back to it. But I mean, when you don't have Chris Jones on the field, you have to find different ways to make up for it. And you're used to playing with him, right? Like other teams aren't game planning for you. This is the preseason. They want to get their stuff done. So like that's what this is all about. So when you think about it in the grand scheme, yeah, fine. They were trying to learn to play without Chris Jones, and you're going to have some mistakes and some missed fills and some things you have to work through to get through that point.
Yeah, and Lego, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
It was vanilla, particularly on offense. Honestly, the defense wasn't much more other than trying to run a couple of front end stunts that I thought were important because you got to get that under your belt. But yeah, this is what Andy Reid's preseason is. Not until week 3 will we actually see even a touch of the actual offense. This was all like, honestly, little league, high school plays, just so they can get some basic reads on how guys do things. Some guys stood out and some guys struggled. We're going to talk about a bunch of them, and you guys have some comments. We will get to them, I promise. Outside of the starters, talked about Nick. I saw a lot of comments about how it was arm length that got that touchdown or that big catch from Thomas over McDuffie. And I beg to differ because if you go back and watch the play, there's a more vertical step in particular that Thomas takes just as the ball is getting ready to arrive. And I think it was lower body separation by him changing the trajectory he was on that separated more than I think just the arm length. So I get people are concerned about the arm length with McDuffie, and it is something to keep an eye on. But I didn't think that's what caused that play today. How did you see it?
No, it's just a little bit of timing issue. Ball goes up a little bit higher. You have a bigger body receiver who kind of can track that. And there's nothing McDuffie can do with where he's at when the ball's thrown. There's nothing he can do about it. He was in good position, and sometimes bigger bodied players can make that look differently. And that's just how it is. And you have to deal with and live with that. And that's also going to be where you are on the field thing. So McDuffie, if he's a half step back, that ball is coming down. He's either going to get the pick or it's an incompletion. So that's another timing thing. Maybe during his his back pedal, he wasn't as fast as he should have been, or maybe he was manipulated during the route. I didn't get to see, obviously, and we're still trying to figure out if we're going to get all 22 from NFL Plus because it doesn't want to work. So
Yeah, I
we'll
couldn't
see.
get it to load at all today. Could you?
No,
Okay.
it hasn't worked. Every time I try to use the all 22 or even go back to replays, it directs me back to the subscription screen, even though I'm subscribed. So that's fun. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're having some issues with that, but all this is timing.
Yeah, I'm glad that your experience with that is the same as mine. So I feel a little bit better now because I was just, I'm cussing at the mountains and, satellite internet, et cetera, et cetera. Come on, Elon, give me a little bit more, but I think it's the NFL's fault, not Elon's. So I think we'll be okay. That said, they get off the field. I thought part of this was scheme as well because there were at least 3 plays by my count that George Karlaftis was dropping into space and they were replace blitzing, and that's fine. I don't think they're going to do that a ton, although it wasn't on George's back that those plays happened. But because of the way that they have to drop him in particular, he does have to turn his back to the far side of the field. And when he's dropping to the near hash, he's only seeing a third of the field. And I think that does open up some holes right behind him. That will change, and they will coach that up, and they will change the way that they're having him drop. The next thing that I think Avery will probably confirm is that I feel like CEH is on a little bit of display. I talked to my friend Matt Derrick, who you can see on Locked On Chiefs. We are live directly post-game. He doesn't feel that that's a showcase, but I kind of do, because I don't know that there's a reason that you wouldn't give rookie looks there, because I think Deneric needs a little bit more. I wasn't as impressed with him as I expected to be. How did you feel about the running backs?
This is exactly what I have expected. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy if Pacheco's not there. And I don't believe it's a showcase either. This is them getting their first team offense run, because that's exactly what it was. They weren't showcasing Jerick McKinnon on third downs. He came in because that's his role. Like that, when Isaiah Pacheco's out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the running back. Third down running back goes to Jerick McKinnon. This has been my expectation. And I know people want the Chiefs to trade Clyde at any way, shape, or form that they can. But the reason Deneric Prince has not gotten the run with the ones that they expected is because he was not very good with the twos. He has not been a very impressive running back in training camp, to my knowledge. He's running on outside plays. Yes, running the football. He has not been a very impressive runner of the football yet. Might get there, you don't know. And he didn't make some good decisions in the kick return game either. There were some lanes that I saw on like the first or second one that he just completely missed and ran him right into somebody. So there's some rookie wall stuff. Like, this is the first preseason game. It's the first stuff. Like, we shouldn't expect him to just come in and be all over the place. But they were getting their first team ready. And for me, that's exactly what I expected.
I think I said it on social media to someone. It's a no alarm fire for me. Like, yeah, you got to pay attention to it, but there's nothing to be worried about at this point. So we're going to get to a bunch of your questions. Everybody gets a question to a super chat. Javonte, appreciate you as always, my friend. I agree. Glad it's only the preseason, because there was some rust there. And I think, unfortunately for me, it was very, very specific to not getting yourself in a rhythm. And I felt it was on both sides of the ball. Particularly on defense, I was a little bit disturbed. We're going to talk about some of the players that had to play in the situations around them, one of which I was screaming about most of the game, and then we found out post-game that somebody broke something, and that's part of the situation. We'll get to that here coming up. I'm just running down my first quarter notes here, really, and I don't want to like, oh, sure, why not? We'll just pat ourselves on the back. A.T. Perry is exactly what Dan and I thought he was.
Oh, no. Weird. It's shocking.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good player.
And I really do feel like in a couple of years, we're going to look back and be like, man, Chiefs could have had him on that roster as well. But that's okay.
Could have had the same player.
Absolutely. And that brings me to the fact that the defense was what it was. I do feel like the lack of Chris Jones was the lack of the pass rush. But on that same drive, I had a couple of notes specifically about FAU and what I was really happy with. And it wasn't just that he came off the ball pretty well. It's the fact that I saw an effective inside counter, which I hadn't seen in college. So he is learning as he goes through, and clearly it's danceable, right?
Oh, I'm so excited about it, man. He was working it too. Like, he was getting outside. He won with a nice little stab, two-hand stab that jolted the left tackle. He rips underneath, turns the corner, which you don't see Chiefs defensive ends do very much because they don't have that ability to do it. And then he went for the outside and then one inside with a little extension and then went inside. That's everything you're looking for. I tweeted it out as it was happening because that's exactly what I'm looking for. FAU to get in there, work your moves, work your counters, set up your game plan, because he did that in college. He set up moves for later in the game. And when you have that inside counter, it makes it very difficult for tackles to be able to account for you. If you can win on the edge, you can threaten the edge, and you can win on the inside. It makes your job as a pass rusher much easier. So I was very happy with him, very impressed considering his camp and OTAs were limited. Being able to come in and show why I've been saying he has the second best pass rush toolbox outside of Chris Jones on this team really just kind of shows you why, in my opinion.
I like it. I'm really happy for it. And Javonte, that was one of the bright spots for me. Thank you, sir, for the support. Folks, if you want to support the channel, the super chats are the easiest way to do it today. We guarantee you we'll address your topic if you do. We appreciate that support. You can also help us by grabbing any of the gear in the RGR store, which you can find in the description, as well as the bit.ly link that is always kind of interesting. You can get Dan's stuff over there, the Rogue Nation. You can get the MVP work here. Lots to go over. As I take a look at it, really, it's the things like Clyde. Out. I'm just scrolling through here to make sure that I cover everything that wasn't in my notes, and we're going to get to the sacks, one of which you guys had some comments about, but I want to take a couple of other comments before we get into the D-line, because I think there's a lot to cover there. Obviously, Felix is just part of it. And, you know, hey, congratulations, because a couple of guys got you some Big Mac deals if you guys are into that. I'm definitely not. I live a long, long ways from any Mickey D's, but Micah had one. Can we finally move Richie James up the depth chart and Ross as well? And, you know, let's see, where'd that play go? So here's the one, and I do want to show it if I can put it back in here. If you guys can't hear the audio, I'm sorry if I'm shouting over it. My apologies. This is a play that, honestly, I was a little disappointed in Blaine Gabbert's rust, because this should have been a little bit cleaner. As you see the switch release here, Justin's coming underneath, could have thrown him on the inside slant as well. I do feel like this was kind of designed to get Richie into the flow. And I do think, as Micah was asking, I think Richie was already number 4 or 5 on the roster. I think he's solidified there as 5. What do you think?
Yeah, this has been the opportunity to get him involved, and like we saw the deep shot, he was open. Rashee Rice had a step on his guy downfield too, which was cool to see. Like you're seeing that they're comfortable with their playmakers. That's exactly what I felt about this. Is that their first and second team playmakers? They were like, all right, we're comfortable. We had guys making plays, you know, Ross catching passes, and Richie James making the big play and then get the touchdown. And what I loved about him is that he looked comfortable. He didn't look out of sorts, and you don't expect him to because he's a veteran, but he was clearly schemed. And that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see them go to get him the football. They found a way to get a one-on-one downfield for him, and they completed it. And then they found a way to get a switch release, which is nice. Those switch releases are tough to defend. As you can see, both the defenders had like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go now. They forgot their responsibilities, and that's kind of what that does. So he's a very fun player that you can move around to an extent. He's still going to be mostly in the slot, but or the Z, really, in my opinion. But yeah, he's a fun player, and I'm excited to see him on this team in the regular season too.
Yeah, we call that broken banjo. That's the way that goes for us. A lot there for what I've done in the past. Like, you want to get that indecision, and that really helps. But like you said, and you mentioned the backside route as well, all 3 were open. So that is a function, I believe, of the preseason. That was post Mahomes. You had second string defenders in there for New Orleans. So we got to take that with a grain of salt. But here's where I think people get themselves in trouble because of the performance today. People are already making adjustments to their depth charts, and I don't think the Chiefs are. So here's the rundown. KT is still number 1. Sky Moore is still number 2, and MVS is going to be the other starter. And in the event that any of those guys can't go, who else didn't play hardly at all today, or if at all? It was Jim Watson. The team feels that he's a guy that can step in and play his roles. And right now, I feel like he is 4 on this roster because of the trust factor. And we can argue back and forth about dynamic playability, and I don't think he has as much as Ross or as Richie, but he's there. He does have straight line speed, and I think they'll utilize that. But it was clear to me the fact that he wasn't on the field much, why they feel that he's there. So Rice, Ross, Richie are the three that I think are going to make up. And I'm convinced, Dan, do you agree with me on the Watson piece? And do they have to keep 7 now?
I do agree with the Watson piece. They like to have 2 burners. They want to have 2 speed guys on the roster pretty much at all times. So that in and of itself kind of locked Watson into the roster. So I'm still not convinced on 7 wide receivers.
Okay.
I watched the offensive line. You might need a couple of those offensive linemen. I'm just saying. Also, I mean, in the event they do keep 7, Nico Remigio is making a play for the roster. He absolutely is. Because he's, in my opinion, the best returner on the team. He also showcased the ability to catch the ball through contact, take a hit, multiple hits, by the way, and got right back up. That's something that you didn't see Justin Ross do. He did shove off a guy, which was nice to see. He got on his back, and he was like, hey, you just kind of fall off of me. I'm just going to keep running.
Go away.
Go away.
Go away.
That was nice to see him. I didn't see much explosiveness out of him, but again, he's getting his feet under him too. But if Remigio keeps playing that way, he's gonna try to force the Chiefs' hand. I believe that very, very well. But again, keeping 7 is much easier if they only keep 2 quarterbacks, which is maybe a possibility. If they only keep 3 tight ends, which I'll be honest with you, Blake Bell needs to go away. Be gone. He's pretty much toast at this point. And if they're going to keep 4, I'd rather see Bushman over Bell at this point. For he's got more upside. So it's tough. It's going to be a tough spot. I'll get a better idea after Tuesday and the next preseason game, how they're going to go. I'm going to be at training camp on Tuesday, and I'll get, it's one of their last training camp practices, which hopefully doesn't get rained out because that's happened to me already before.
Right.
So we'll see.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I do want to address something really quick. So just to pause for a second, folks. For Joseph and anybody else who is hearing impaired that does need the transcripts, this is a live show. So unfortunately, the transcript won't actually drop until after we complete it. It's usually about an hour behind is what I find is the runtime for the service that I use to create all the captions. But they will be available on Rewatch about an hour after the show. So you should be able to follow along. I'm sorry there's nothing I can do in terms of live captions. I've tried that with one service, and it was absolutely terrible. I think they thought I was speaking like Japanese or something. It was but back to what I agree with you. And I think Ross in particular, this was the big hurdle for me. Everyone can yell at me because I wasn't positive enough on him, but this was the reason why. Today he showed that he can survive contact, that he can win in contact at the catch point. He didn't do it consistently enough. There was at least one that I wish he had back. But this was like the gate for me. I can believe in Justin Ross now because he's played at the NFL level against NFL defenses and he has survived the ball game. That's a big hurdle. So I do think he's on there. I agree with you. Remigio's pushing. He is number 8 on my board. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think it is a pretty sizable gap, and I think they have to try to get him to the practice squad because I don't think he can beat out either Ross or Richie James at this point. And I do feel like Rashee Rice and Justin Watson are not even in the discussion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I personally think Watson should be in the discussion, but we know that Andy Reid has final say on that kind of stuff, and he's almost essentially slotted in there. So when it comes down to the wide receiver room, it's going to be more difficult in seasons past to not keep 7 because last year they kept 5 on opening day roster. They're going to try, I would imagine, to keep 6, but you never know. It's a tough group, and when you have as much depth as they do, that makes their decisions more difficult, and it makes other roster spots have to be accounted for, and that's the problem here. If Chris Jones is going to miss games, real NFL games, which is something that is now on the table, I think, that puts into question Are you going to keep those 7 wide receivers, or are you going to keep some defensive linemen because you need to have more bodies for rotation? That's what this is going to come down to, honestly.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, and if there's any way, if you get that done and you can clear a couple things up, there's still an option. And I just want to finish on Remigio because I do think there's one thing going for him that we don't address enough. And Micah, yeah, I can see that there's a lot of people that are going to say Justin Ross over Watson today because Watson was absent, because they didn't play him. I don't think depth chart wise, the Chiefs are going to agree with you there, but that's okay. Like, I'm just happy that they have legit options that are above 6'1". They have 3 of them now that I feel can play at this level in the league and be successful. But I want to go back to this other play because I don't think I spotlighted it enough, to tell you the truth. If you don't follow me on social media, this is where you can go find it. It's the end of this play that's important. So just follow. Like, Pat's looking around for the ball on the ground to make sure he gets it. That's the kind of thing that I think we don't read in enough. Like, I don't want to be like one of those like super like tinfoil hat dudes, but like when the quarterback that leads the league is excited about the play you just made, that's significant to me.
Yeah, he's excited. I think that that's something that I think I've seen it quite a bit on Twitter and stuff like that. But he's like, I need to do something because he made one of the things, but what that was his first catch, if I'm not mistaken. And he was like, I got to get that football. Like, yeah. What?
You're absolutely right, Des.
Yeah. Ryan always has too many. I got it, sweetie. I got it. Don't worry.
Too many tabs should be on my license plate because that's my life.
We should get it put on a shirt. Put it on a shirt for Ryan. I have too many tabs open.
Broken banjo, too many tabs.
But yeah, Remigio's a fun player. And I personally, if he keeps playing this way, I don't think he's going to make it to the practice squad. I don't.
Yeah. Maybe you may be absolutely right. There are a couple of players that are going to stand out that way that we're going to address here in a second. Getting back, Mike, I had kind of a good string of questions here. Have they figured out the Bell motion? Yes, absolutely. Blake Bell brings one thing to this roster, and it is that sneak. Can he get a little bit of blocking done? Yes, there is that. That's not enough to warrant a roster spot, in my opinion. I think Bushman had a terrible call that negated a good catch on his part. And I think especially if you're leaning towards the pass catching aspect of this, if you think Noah Gray can do that sneak, or God forbid you actually put someone in the backfield and run the damn ball, then you don't need Blake Bell as far as I'm concerned. The other thing to remember is you can put Blake Bell onto the practice squad, no problem. He can earn a nice little weekly stipend just to practice and get called up in an emergency. And I think for a guy his age in this situation, I think he'd probably be pretty happy with that. And that's a way around that roster spot for right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I did hear everything. I was just dealing with my daughter.
I figured as much. So, folks, remember, we're going to try to get to your opinions and questions as we go through. Not everyone's going to get on screen because a lot of you guys ask the same great questions. So I try to make sure that we get the topics up there. It won't necessarily be everyone's look. But Chiefs KT, I appreciate you and thank you for the support. And you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, this puts the Chiefs in a more desperate mode than Chris Jones is right now.
Oh, yeah.
You have 5 days to my drop-dead magic date for him to play week 1 and actually be effective. It's coming really quick, and this performance, I think, probably puts the ball more squarely in Chris's court to make that demand and stick with it. What do you think?
That's kind of how I came to my conclusion earlier. Like, it's obvious that the Chiefs need Chris Jones, and I think that he was like, let's play the first preseason game. Let's see what it looks like. And as soon as it does, guess what? What we've all been talking about, that this defense is built around Chris Jones. When you can see that it's built around Chris Jones, that does. It puts immediate pressure on the team now to give him what he's looking for. And there has been rumors that they've made a huge D offer. I don't buy, by the way, because if they made a huge offer anywhere close to Aaron Donald, it would appear to me that Chris Jones, who has said, I want to be the second highest paid defensive tackle, not more than not more than Aaron Donald, who has come out publicly and said something like that he would have signed said contract. Yeah. So something in the realm of probably 27, 28, 29 is what we're talking about if an offer was made. 29.5 to 30 million is probably what we're looking at right now in terms of what Chris wants and what he should get paid, if we're being very honest with ourselves.
Absolutely. KT, thank you for that. And Terry, thank you. We agree as well. And for those of you, if you see KT's symbol up here, he's a member. So you get all the behind the scenes, you get the Discord, especially if you're at the rookie level, you get our inside kind of rants or the things that are probably too hot to put on in public, at least by my standard. Dan's a lot looser with that than I am, but hey. I just started my new series about where I'm at on something. You guys will get that this week, a members only video. So sign up at rookie level or above and you get in. And I appreciate you, KT, very much so. Corbin had a good question. Is Justin Reed really that bad? Because, oof, he was rough. It was the man coverage today, especially against Johnson, the big tight end, who did have a very good end of season last year. But yeah, Justin did not look like he was working correctly. He didn't look 100% to me because it was pretty bad out there. And man, do you have a concern about that, Dan?
Not necessarily. It's again, excuse me. Sorry, guys.
No worries. I think it's just that responsibilities are one thing. Being able to set the tone is another thing. Being able to actually handle man on man with an athlete that is pretty close to on par with you doesn't give you a lot of room for error. So I do feel like this was a day that Justin Reed wants back, but also one that is just the beginning. So I think I'm not worried at this point. We'll see what happens in continuing situations. On the opposite side, going back to my game notes, guy that did stand out to me is I thought Cook played well. I thought he was in good position. I thought he came down well. I thought he tackled well. I was really happy to see. I was concerned about a drop-off for Juan Thornhill. I'm not terribly concerned about that right now. It feels like Cook is going to be in a position to make an addition to this team that allows you to feel like it's fairly comparable to what Juan did. Now, Brian's better at the line of scrimmage, or at least he was in college, in my opinion, but clearly he's going to be playing back quite a bit. And so I'm interested to see just how much they move that around, and maybe that's part of what we saw today with Justin Reed and being in a position that wasn't necessarily in a whole lot last year.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is that sometimes you're going to see players put in positions that they weren't necessarily put in last year. And if the Chiefs are trying to get guys comfortable out of position or try guys out in different spots, it might look worse than it did in the very first preseason game. And that's something we have to remember. I think I'm going to end up doing a members video this week about the first preseason game because apparently that's been something that needs to be addressed. And we kind of need to be reminded about what the first preseason game is for.
TG, I do want to, we talked about most of yours. I don't think Powell did anything different. You're absolutely right on Remigio and Ross. I would stay away from Carson Wentz or Foles. I don't think there's anything wrong with Gabbert. I think it was a deliberate lack of game plan this week that kind of made him look in one direction, or maybe they're trying to feed a couple of guys to get good looks at him. I'm not worried about that. I think Bichelle, I see this more of a plus game for Bichelle than a minus game for Gabbert. I think Bichelle just did some things that he's able to do with the knowledge of the offense. And I was really impressed with that last play where he was able to dodge defenders. I haven't seen him be that good at that previously. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, that was nice to see. And Patrick, freaking out about it too. Definitely helps. Everyone was like losing their minds. I would say I would too. And every time we've seen Chad Henne in the preseason, what does Chad Henne look like? Chad Henne. Blaine Gabbert looks like Blaine Gabbert in the preseason without the first team offensive line for the most part. They just, when you're the very first drive that they had was with the ones with at least the first team offensive line, but you don't get any time to get in a rhythm. Like everyone's moving around, people are doing different things. You're trying to work on specific plays, just run of the mill plays. You're not trying to get anything creative with it, and you don't have a game plan built for Blaine Gabbert. You have, we're going to run these plays, and you're going to run these plays. That's how it's going to work. So yeah, again, I'm not too worried about it. We're doing something different this year, guys. I'm doing something different this year. I'm counting all of the personnel packages for the teams because I get tired of having to look for it every single week. I'll give you guys one thing because I thought this was interesting. I went from just Mahomes, Gabbert, and Bouchel's personnel packages. The Chiefs' first team offense ran 6 plays. 4 of those plays were at least 2 tight ends or more. That tells me, guess what? We're going to probably see 3 or 4 tight ends on this roster because they want to run more of it. That's just kind of how it is. That 4th and 1 play was out of 12 personnel, and we all know that should just be kicked out. No more. And you just need to put that on film. We've seen it on film. It doesn't work. Okay. So just an interesting little nugget.
Yeah. Hey, and I'm glad that you're going to be doing that because, quite frankly, I'm going to trust yours more than some of the services that I can get that information from, because I know that some of this gets lost in the minutia. So, folks, we're going to have that special data because Dan's going to do the work. So give him a hand, and if you want to know that week to week, we're going to be here on the channel. We'll be working it with the whole team. So we're going to try to cross collaborate a little bit better here this coming season as we try to adapt and move forward. We've got a lot coming for you. But Tommy Bring and Donnie said pretty much the same thing. And Danny Shelton is in my notes. Danny looks about 30 or 35 pounds lighter to me. And I thought he moved really well. We know that he can man the middle and demand double teams because he can anchor so well. But he actually pushed back the pocket better than I've seen him in probably 4 or 5 seasons today. What was your impression with him?
He looks so much leaner, and like, just, we talked about leanness, but like the short area quickness. He's a great athlete. And when you lose some of the weight that he was carrying last season, you can see how good of an athlete he is. And that's exactly what they do need. They do need another guy that can come in there, be a big force behind Chris Jones that has some of that short area that can stand up to double teams and can get push. You can find a way to get consistent push with an offensive line. Going to help your defensive ends. It's going to help everybody else, especially in that when you bring in Chris Jones out of the game, because we know he's going to play at some point for the Chiefs this season. But when you do, if you put Tershawn Wharton in there, typically you're going to see just teams run the ball at him, and they're just going to be like, fine, we'll live with 4 or 5 yards at a time. Danny Shelton makes that a little bit more complicated, so that's nice to see.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Danny's presence in his play today, and thank you, Donnie, as well for your comment, leads into Brent's comment. And what I was a little disappointed in is that Coburn didn't get on the field until the second half. And I thought he held his own very well. Like everything in my notes about Keandre Coburn was positive, but it was all against 3s and 4s. And I needed him to get reps against the 2s. And that's where I'm a little bit concerned because Danny knows what he's doing. If Danny's that fit, that's the hurdle. Danny doesn't need the reps to come up with technique or understanding the defense. Keandre does. So I'm a little bit perplexed there. That's one of my concerns going into next week.
Yeah, we just got to get these guys. I think it's important, especially if Chris Jones isn't there. It's important to get Coburn. You need an opinion on Kendrick Coburn and the second team. You need to see what he can do if he's getting pushed around in practice and you don't think he could stand up to the second team of an offensive line. That's a problem. And if it's not happening next week, it's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I wish it wasn't the case, but it is what it is. Doug was looking overall at the DBs. Now, when you say DBs, there's plenty of them out there, right? And we had some up days and some down days. And I think everybody's kind of down on McDuffie, maybe a little bit more so than they need to be. But I think we can clearly agree the thing that I was concerned about was Nick Jones wasn't out there. Come to find out, he actually fractured a couple of fingers. And I want to say that was on special teams early, if I understand right. And that's why I don't remember seeing like a wrap or any kind of cast on that. But I think that's why we didn't see him at all in the first half. And then he came on later because they had to get him ready somehow. And I'm sure that's x-rays and whatever else was going on. But in his stead, this was a good day for my guys because Halasi played really well. Obviously came away with the pick, but he was physical and he was in phase and he was able to keep up with some pretty good receivers before that. And so now I feel like him and Boyado from K-State, they're all in there. If Nick Jones misses time or can't make this roster because of an injury, those are 2 guys that are now pushing to be the 5th or 6th corner, in my opinion. Do you see it differently?
No, you can't. And I think that, you would want Boodle to kind of make his way in there, but he's been the same guy for his entire career. He's not making strides and he's not making plays in the game. And the simple fact that Halasi came in and read the throw and undercut it, that's enough to be able to show, okay, he's seeing the game. It's not too fast for him. And that's the thing is you can see this happening. You're in off coverage. You're seeing it happen before the receivers seeing it happen. That's important to have when you're looking for a guy who might have to replace someone that you expected to be on the roster. So it's really nice to have someone like that come out in the game, and regardless of it being against the second or third string, be able to see it and let it happen and have it unfold that way. So it was impressive to see him happen. And honestly, the reason that the interception happened, in my opinion, was because right in his face. Just saying.
Well, here, and I'll put it on the screen for everybody too, because I think what you get here is again, reading the quarterback, making a play.
Yes.
And the reason that this works, and I'm sure most people don't, when I brought him up in the pre-draft process, people were like, what are you talking about? Western Kentucky. Yes, I'm one of the few people that watches Western Kentucky film. And it was impossible for me to get the defensive side because their offense has been so prolific lately. Yeah. I got one film and he made plays in it. And I'll tell you why. Because this isn't a Western Kentucky guy. He played at Oregon as a freshman and made plays all over the field. Had some off-field things, left, went to independent, came back at Western Kentucky. So people kind of downgraded him in the draft, I feel, because of where he played. But he's capable of doing this kind of thing. And this tells me if you're there as a rookie making that kind of read, I feel comfortable with that. And I think he's probably the next guy on the roster right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree, at least with game performance. I know the guy at K-State was making waves in practice and getting first-team reps and stuff like that, but this can change that when you're able to come into a game and make a play, especially with an injury to Nick Jones that kind of elevates, and you're going to probably see him getting some first, second-team reps in training camp this week.
And to answer your question, Brandon, I do think Boydo looked pretty good too.
Yeah, he looked good.
Obviously, yeah, didn't have the big takeaway play, no, but I thought he looked pretty solid. And you can see here, in fact, Nick Jones is in on this play, and you can see that he's got like 3 fingers wrapped up in kind of a semi-club. So that's part of it. So maybe if he's going to be able to recover, that's Nick right there at 31. Maybe he's going to be okay and he's going to make this. And maybe we don't have to be concerned about it. But to have another D-back or two that are starting to step up and push when we've already had injury to L'Jarius Sneed and we already see Najee Johnson's season over, they're in a pretty lucky spot because we're not hearing a ton of, hey, look, Jason Watts or Jalen Watson's making a big push, or Josh Williams has really improved from last year. We're seeing like, hey, where's the step forward, boys? What's going on?
It's kind of scary. I'll be honest with you. You have these corners that played better than expected last year, and if they're not continuing to do that when the season rolls around, you might find yourself, especially if you don't have Chris Jones for the first couple of games, if he ends up holding out, in a world of hurt on the defensive side. That's all I'm going to say.
It could be ugly. Just to recap, Gary, yes, we do feel 7's possible. 6 is super likely, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Justin
6 is a lot.
has earned it. Yeah,
and Justin 7 will be, unless something crazy happens, 7 is getting more and more likely as the season rolls around.
Agreed. Let's see. Arrow 3. How do you feel about Shane imitating Patrick for the TD? I thought it was great. And that's something that he's always had good athleticism to break the pocket and run. But to be able to, I thought the usage of the lineman in that case, to be able to cut and dodge, and then was it sidearm or did he just hit like that narrow angle? It made it look like sidearm to me.
I think it was almost like a 3/4 slot. I don't think he went full sidearm. I think he was just like, look, you get out of my way. I'm moving to my right with the stiff arm to his offensive lineman and just kind of throws it in there. I don't think it went full sidearm.
So, let me see if I can find that. I think I do have it. No, not quite. This is the one. Let's look at this one. The one
off of here soon and then making dinner. Okay?
And I do think that it looked good. And this was exactly what we were hoping for. Survive contact, go to the correct spot, understand the trajectory of the ball as well. And this comes from 2 things. Not only his physical capabilities, which aren't really in question, but it's about understanding where he's supposed to line up as well. And hopefully they'll actually give us this look here. As he comes in, it's contact right here that I'm happy with. Right there at the neck, the thing that makes people the most nervous about Justin Ross. Boom, no issues. That makes me feel pretty good about that. Now, if I can find the other one, I'm going to go do that here in a second. But overall, not to take Dan out of the mix here, but quarterback play. Buechele, I don't think they're going to make the roster in terms of like being the backup. Should they keep 3, or do you think they could even get him to the practice squad at this point?
I don't think they couldn't get into the practice squad. There have been teams sniffing around him for years. So the chance that they keep 3 quarterbacks again is probably extremely high, considering that Andy Reid has had to protect him on their practice squad before. He doesn't want to have to do it again, honestly. And something about the leap from Mahomes to Buechele makes them uncomfortable enough that they had to bring Blaine Gabbert in. So they want 3 quarterbacks, apparently. That's what they want.
It seems like it. And this is a good reason why. We'll go back to it here because here is Shane on it. And it's this dip move that I'm looking for. Right there. Okay, bam. I mean, that's
quick release.
That's spatial awareness, right? Yeah. I mean, when this guy's excited, be excited. I can't tell it any more plainer than that, right? But it's that dip move and the ability to deliver the ball. Now, interesting thing about this play is he had been targeting Crawford for a couple of tosses late, and I was really impressed with Crawford. Again, this is level of competition that shouldn't turn into a golden ticket, right? But this scramble, the dip inside the lineman, boom, like that's heads up play by the quarterback. It's a great change and scramble drill on the backside for the route, and that's where it comes in handy. Is you got to be able to help your guy out. That's something that for a guy who came in, Crawford was a free agent last year in Indianapolis and came over to see that that means he's caught on to the concept in Kansas City in camp. And that's really positive going forward for everybody involved.
I'd like to see them get him some reps with the 2s next week. That'd be nice to see. Say, well, maybe we don't necessarily need a Blaine Gabbert if that ends up being the case. But you got to find out what you got in him if you want him to be a backup sooner or later, or you got to cut loose. Like this is getting a little ridiculous with Shane Buechele, in my opinion. It's getting a little out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in a game situation, especially a playoff situation like we saw Henny have to come into and that kind of thing, I'm trusting Blaine Gabbert more right now. That's just where I'm going to come down.
But like Buechele's been here for 4 or 5 years. Like it's getting out of hand. It's a roster spot, man. Like it is.
Yeah. Donnie, I'm glad you had fun. I thought it was fun as well. Appreciate the support, pal. Terry, no, this was by design. This is the preseason. We all forget, especially when we have long seasons where they go to the Super Bowl. We all forget coming back this game and the next game are iffy play calling at best. Like there's no flavor. You don't even get the little black flakes in the vanilla ice cream. It's not vanilla bean. It's just vanilla. It's just all white bread. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Johnsy, I actually like the 4-string quarterback. He showed us some bright spots. He looked okay. He made some bad decisions as well, though. Obviously, the last one, there were 2 plays in particular. He nearly got picked off because he wasn't very spatially aware of where the defender could reach. So I do think there's still some work for Ludicom, but he does show some bright spots as well, particularly the scramble I thought was a positive sign.
Absolutely. He did a good job. He showed that the athletic ability, the arm talent is there. And, he made in a couple of nice throws into a little bit of tighter windows for, 4th-string guys. So, yeah, it was a nice showing on his part, I think.
Man. Another guy that I thought had a nice showing later because I was a little worried. I thought we saw jitters for Rashee Rice, but I thought he corrected pretty quickly. Overall on the day, I feel like there was more positive than negative or concern. Where are you at on him?
He looked explosive after that short catch and run. Like that's what I wanted to see. We saw him get loose on the big play to Richie James. He had a step on his guy, which I like to see again. You're forcing safeties to have to make a decision when you're getting clear your guys too. So I think he looked faster. He looked more explosive. He just needed to get a little more comfortable, and that's going to happen. So it's going to take a little bit more time. But I think by the time the season rolls around, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that too. Let's see. What are you starting a petition for Mahomes to let go? No. I will anti-sign that. I don't know how to unsign something I haven't signed, but I would unsign that.
I get everyone wants the Chiefs to do what the Eagles did. I get it. I understand. Unfortunately, they're never going to do that. If Jalen Hurts tomorrow did that and he did the same thing that Patrick Mahomes did, the Eagles would no longer do it. They would find some way to do it because they paid him a lot of money. This is just how it is. So they have to stop treating 4th and 1 like it's an empty box, basically. And they can just bring in as many people as they want to and just run it up the middle. They have to stop doing this and figure something else out.
Oh, yeah, I certainly agree. Logan, thank you for the support, pal. Hope you're well as well. And you put it in a very good way. The preseason is for the coaches to evaluate the players. It is for them. For us, it's fun to see them, but we're not getting a real look at the real concepts they're going to use. So, yeah, everybody take a grain of salt. Everything's going to be okay. Thanks for putting it that way, Logan, and thanks for your support, pal. Let's see. We'll answer this one too. Could you see a veteran potentially being traded to make room for a young guy? Are you taking that, Kamakale? Dan, are you taking that as trading away one of the veterans on this roster or trading for one?
No, trading away.
Okay. What would you think?
No, I don't think that they would do that unless somebody comes with like real draft capital for an MBS or a Justin Watson. Like everyone else in this roster is essentially young. So at the wide receiver position. So I just don't see that happening.
Okay, fair enough. I'm with you. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. I thought Cam Jones looked pretty solid today, along with Truman Jones. Seems like a lot of long shots for making the roster. You're absolutely right, but they're practice squad potentials for sure. What I'm concerned about is Cam Jones is a better athlete and a better coverage linebacker than Christensen or Cochran, and yet he's playing behind them, and I'm concerned about that. I thought his run fits were fine, so I'm not sure why that is. So again, I'm not going to make it to camp here in the next couple of days. I've run out of options with other things going on in my life with my family. So Dan's going to be our representative at camp. I'm not going to see it, but what happens, and the reason that I always go this time of year is because things change dramatically after the first preseason game. We're going to see lineup changes in the next 2 days, and we're definitely going to see a different group that gets playing time in the next preseason game. So hold on to your hats. Let's see what happens with Cam, because I think we could see a change there. I felt he played better than Christensen in particular, and arguably with Cochran as well.
I agree with you. He was aggressive, recognizing run fits, coming downhill quickly, taking on fullback blocks, taking off puller blocks. Like he was doing what he did at Indiana. Like he was just all over the place, and that's something that you should reward, in my opinion. But alas, I have to go get dinner ready for my daughter because she continuously says that she's hungry and doesn't know why this is taking so long. So thank you guys. I will be here tomorrow night. But yeah, until then, you guys, we'll see you then.
Have a good one, dude. We only have a couple questions to wrap up anyway, folks, so we'll get to those. And funny, as Dan was going to mention that, I was going to show you guys this one because I think this group is really, really interesting right now. Allegretti is a lock for this roster. He's the best interior backup, period. He might be better than one of the tackles if you had to list it all out. So he's certainly 6. But to answer Brian's question, do you think Andy will give Kennard some reps at right tackle? I'm not sure what you were getting at, but I'll tell you what I do think. I think Wanya Morris played a ton of snaps today, the most of any offensive lineman. I think he earned it. I think he's the swing tackle. I don't think it's close. I know Prince Teguanago took all the backup reps at left tackle. I'm not concerned about that. I think, it was the first series of backups was Wanya. Then Niang came in, and then Wanya came right back in the next drive. So they were moving it around, but Wanya played a ton of snaps. He needs them because, especially for the rookie to get started, he needs those reps early and right now. So I'm fine with that. But you bring up a great question because not only did Danny Shelton slim down, Darian Kennard slimmed down quite a bit. And as I watched, he's all over my notes as on the second string, he and Wanya Morris were clearly the best 2 out there. And in particular, when it went to the third, when you're getting against pass rushers that are not that talented, Lucas Niang and Austin Ryder were getting beat a lot more than Kennard was. I think Kennard held his own, and I think he's in the right spot as a right guard. I do not think you give him any tackle spots. I doubt that Andy Heck will do that because they don't like to move guys back and forth too often. And with both Niang, a serious investment, and Wanya Morris, the guy that I think is probably there on top of Prince Teguanaga, you have enough tackles. I don't think they're going to try to push that too far, but it is what it is. So let's see what happens. And as we go through, we'll check that out. And hey, Lego, you're awesome. Whoever gifted, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And we appreciate everything you guys do for us in keeping the growth going. Rogue Nation grows. It's a lot at the Discord. That's where you guys can interact the most easily, but it's also here on the channel a lot as well. And if there's something you guys want in order to make that experience a little bit better, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to try. We have a lot of plans this year for the channel, so we're trying to move things around and get the content that you guys want the most easy. And one of those is going to be my just shotgun what I think type episodes, and those are going to be on the member side so that I can speak my mind a little bit more freely. So I want you guys to know about that. Want to go back and finish up the last couple of questions. That was Brian's. Thank you, Brian. That was a great one. And then let's see where Dan go to. What does Dan take a look at the most? Dan is going to be focused a little bit more than usual on the offensive side of the ball. And I know he's going to look at the wide receivers, of course, but he's also going to be taking a look at the offensive line and how this lineup's going to work, because those are the two that have to kind of, I think, mesh together. I don't think they can afford to go 27 on offense on the 53-man roster. So you got to make it work at 26. There's a lot there. The rundown here from Matt is keen, because not only did A.T. Perry, a rookie, lead receivers for the Saints, a rookie led the Chiefs as well, and it was Nico. So I think that's definitely something we're going to see what happens in the jump this week, and Dan will be keeping an eye on that. Seth, I thought there was a new rule where you could keep a third, dress a third without taking a roster spot. You're absolutely correct. The difference is that quarterback would have to be on the practice squad, and that's the problem with Shane Bichelle. At this point, with his performances and how experienced he is in this system, you have to feel that somebody like the Washington Commanders, who I'm still not sure what they're going to do at quarterback, and the rigmarole that's going on around Eric Bieniemy, you put him out there where he's exposed to waivers, I think he gets picked up, and I think that's probably the concern. But you're absolutely right. The third quarterback can be a practice squad player that can dress and be used in emergency, and that, I think, is a great rule. Personally, I feel like the entire 53-man roster should be able to be available on game day. That's just how I read it. My personal opinion is that it's kind of silly the way that the league goes about this right now, and I wish they would just figure it out, but we'll see what happens. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you. Brent, what's your take on Anthony Richardson after his preseason game? I don't want to judge, because I haven't been tracking the Colts camp, to tell you very much. And I really don't feel like I'm not going to do a victory lap, but I do feel the fact that he comes out and throws a pick right away that was honestly pretty bad tells you a lot of what you saw in college is going to take a while to work out in the pros. Is he ready to be a starting quarterback? Doesn't look like it to me. Does that mean he can't be in year two? Not at all. And I do think he has a ton of upside on his talent. But right now, Brett, I feel pretty good about where I had him, and the fact that I thought this kind of thing was going to plague him for a little bit at least. Is Trey Lance our next big quarterback prospect after 49ers pretend to give him a chance? KL, I didn't get to see any of it because I was working and I was doing the live shows and all that, so I didn't get to watch that game. Felt like Trey Lance was one, if not the best, the second best in his class. And it just feels like the fit with Kyle isn't working and he isn't progressing. So I do think he needs a second chance. I would love to see him in Kansas City as that replacement for Bichelle, maybe eventually displaces Gabbert, that kind of thing. I just think someone else is, if he is available at any time, I think there are plenty of other teams that felt like I did that are still willing to make an investment. So I do think that if there's a market for him, I think someone will pick him up. I don't think he's going to get a chance to be in there. And let's see. Last minute, because Sean has a great one here. If you guys would hit the like and the sub, if you're not a sub already, would appreciate it. And hit that like if you would help us out. Also, you can always support the channel anywhere here or anywhere in the Discord. Feel free. Doug, thanks for reminding me. You guys are great at that, and I do a pretty poor job of promoting ourselves, so I'm going to try to get better at that. We'll cover Sean's, and then we're going to wrap so that I can get ready for the next live stream. That's going to be over on Locked On NFL, where we're going to cover the AFC West here later tonight. So just got here. What did you think of Connor? And it's great that you brought that up because I haven't even talked about Connor yet, but he was in my notes a lot as well. And I did put him on social media once during the game also, just to shout him out, because I really liked what I saw from him today, and I think he displayed why he's here very, very dramatically in that the best thing that he did was come downhill, make tackles, and blitz. The blitz was incredible, and that's where it comes down to where he's going to have to fit in. And I do think it's him and Mike Edwards as the backup safeties. You saw a lot of three safeties set there against the 3s and 4s that had Edwards and Chamar and Deion Bush. Deion's playing special teams. So like right now, it feels like it's probably 5-5 until we know about the injuries to the corners. If you feel like you have to keep 6 corners because everybody keeps getting hurt and now you're down a little bit in terms of your volume, maybe you can't keep 5 safeties. And I think that might be problematic for special teams in particular. So let's see what happens with that. I'm hoping that Nick and Nick Jones's injury isn't significant, and I'm hoping that they can get past that here pretty quickly. But we're going to find out. Hopefully we should have an injury report again tomorrow. He'll come in for treatment and get that squared away. By Tuesday, I'll bet we'll hear from Andy Reid about what's going on with him and see what happens. Right now, I don't have any indication from anyone I've spoken to that it's like an IR situation for Nick Jones. So let's keep our fingers crossed. That said, Brett, you had one other that I just want to throw out there. I thought Tranquil looked pretty good as well. I thought it was really interesting that they went with the base defense and kept him off the field until the backups. I think that was by design. We'll see how they change as they go through the preseason. And I do think he's going to be out there a lot more often come the regular season for sure. So have a great night. I appreciate you guys being here. We're going to try to do this through the preseason as well. And you guys know that we'll be live post-game, every game, no matter what day it's on, because it's going to be a funky schedule this year. But appreciate you all. Tomorrow night, 6, we're going to do the Q&A, answer every single question. I know we covered several tonight, but not all of them. So I do want to round back to that. And we'll be looking at whatever we can get for clips as well. I don't think we're going to get the all 22 for preseason, but Dan's more optimistic than me. We'll find out. So you guys enjoy your Monday. I think for all intents and purposes, this was a positive day for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm ready to see more. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.